Good morning. We had been star watching, my grandson and I. He's 5 years old, and we, laying out in the grass, just looking at this marvelous galaxy above us. And the following morning, he came to me and said, maybe you shouldn't stare that long at the stars. So I said, why not? And he said, because you may fall in love with your dreams. 5 years old. So maybe the first warning today would be that let's see to it that we do not fall in love with our work. We're not supposed to love just cities. We are supposed to be devoted to fight for just cities. So I'll start with a quote, and I'll end with a quote also. This is from Martin Luther King Jr. saying, "An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." I think we know a lot as humans about justness or injustice, maybe on a very primitive level, really. I would strongly recommend you to Google or to find the films showing the experiments conducted by Frans de Waal, the Dutch primate researcher, showing how those big elephants and the big monkeys really have a sense of justness, reconciliation, and empathy, really. So it's absolutely crucial that we remember that by being unjust, we are doing something on an existential level towards each other. So we have every reason to fight for a just city. Maybe some of the basic elements really for the survival of our species. Qualities like brutality, anger, and greed are not a very good survival kit in the long run. So I'll give you just a few reminders from yesterday, not a report, no conclusion, just an attempt to wind up the clock for another marvelous day here in the word clouds. So I'll start with the breakout sessions, and I'm happy to say that I'll frame this very small report with 2 limericks written by John Robinson. He says that it's a memory aid to write limericks. Maybe so. The first one goes like this, and it's called A Random Thought. Co-production's the goal we all seek, but what underlies the mystique? Is it ethos or compound, and do we all sound rather abstract whenever we speak? So we'll try to be a rather concrete then, saying, because you know that you had to produce some basic or the word that captured the discussion best. And these were paradoxes, research, contextualize the cooperation, frustration, sharing, collaboration. Made me quite happy, really, that the words differed in that sense, because we talked about yesterday being having a romantic approach or something like that, and sometimes we do have a romantic approach also to co-creation or co-production. I'm sad to say that some of the worst abuses that we've seen in the history are a result of co-production. So it doesn't guarantee that we come out good or even just being just co-productive. We have to frame it in some sense, and let's talk about that also today. What kind of a value base do we need in order to use the method or whatever in a good way? So discussions on scale, control, power, structure, etc. indicates an awareness of the fact that there is no guarantee that the outcome would be good. But we have every reason to be hopeful within this framework that co-production could be the core element. So I had, I went home rather early from the dinner and just to try to sort my own notes. And I fell asleep in the couch with my dogs. And I had this dream, that there was only one panel yesterday. And they were all on the stage at the same time. What a panel. And I had dropped my notes during my sleep, so I had to sort them again and didn't know what order. And I came up with this artificial dialogue. But all the quotes would be extremely relevant and true, coming from yesterday in the same room with the same issue. And I'd like to read this new dialogue to you that came up after this sleep. David empathizes that co-production is the key method to move cities into being livable and inclusive. John replied that it depends on what kind of motorcycle we want. And that we anyway have to get 3 times better in every aspect. And besides, said Beth, I don't believe in co-production as a method, but as an ethos, an attempt to enact values. As with sustainability, replied John, it's normative and it's an ethical principle. And ask ourselves, said Deborah, what do we really know? On the other hand, said Simon, we need to know a lot about our ignorance. What do we not know? These are our limits. Per stated that the challenge is to keep co-production over time, and Serena added the old proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yes, said Warren, we are not to lean on the assumption of the elite. Especially, said Beth, as the old is about to die and the new is not yet born. But still, said Per, we should have included the public sector, a longer journey, but better. I told you so, said Serena. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's why we have to train activists and not planners, said Deborah. True, said John, because the world is changing under our feet. But we still need numbers to create a picture, said Deborah. Not numbers, mumbled John. It's all about power. It's about normalizing sustainability instead of behavioral change. We have to bring justice to the center of the process. But we cannot talk about justice without talking of power, added Karina, and concluded that lack of power is, in fact, injustice. Then it is important, replied Alfred, that cooperation or co-production really enhances cohesion. That's a great thing, said Alex. We feel like we are equal partners. Exactly, shouted Serena. If you want to go fast, shh, said the others. Anyhow, said Klaus, we are not served by nebulous words that serves like a black canvas for different projections, a morass of vagueness. But it is a contested concept that has to be argued over and over again, concluded John. Yes, it's a loose fabric, said Henrietta. Loose, said Deborah. There's a global stranglehold on cities to become successful in a given narrative. It's obvious, said Rike, that there are similar issues but not similar language. About yesterday. So this is all true, but yet not, in a way. But I'd like to end this feedback by my favorite quote, and it's more relevant than ever. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, and it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. This is the beginning of A Tale of Two Cities from 1859 by Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Never have the need for just cities been bigger or greater than now. Just to move on, saying why aren't we reaching the goals or moving faster on, as Henrietta said, I'd like to introduce Nazem Tahvilzadeh, who is a researcher from Multicultural Center in Botkyrka in public administration. He used to be located in Gothenburg and has been here a lot working. I can't believe what he's doing in Stockholm. But still, he's there.
Feeling good.
He's feeling good in Stockholm. Give him a hand.
Reverend Lars, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So we have 8 minutes to talk about the obstacles.
No. 7, no.
7 minutes.
No, we have the time.
Where should we start?
We should start. I think we should start with, because we had this discussion yesterday about the relationship or whatever. How do you relate the two words just and sustainable? Because we use them as they were synonyms sometimes.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that I'm happy about Mistra Urban Futures having a stronger focus on just cities rather than sustainable cities. But I don't think it will solve the problems of co-production and actually achieving sustainable or just cities. So I think it's an expression for it's not a panic attack, but it's a cheap way out to change the concept. Changing the concept won't help you, people. You will just have another complex concept which you have to contest with other people. And I think it's even going to be harder with just cities rather than sustainable cities. Because I think everyone, I mean, who wants to be unsustainable? Nobody wants to be unsustainable, even though I prefer the hedonistic lifestyle of, burning up fast. But I think if you compare the concept of sustainability or unsustainability with the concept of justice, you have a great difference, because I think all of us conceive ourselves of being just people, right? Fair and just people. Who walks around with a self-image of I'm an unjust and unfair person? Maybe we feel that occasionally, but in general, it's a concept which a lot of people have a very personal relation to. And if you put a lot of powerful people around a table and ask them, well, how should we achieve a just city? What do you think the answer will be? There will definitely not be one answer.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of answers. And if we learn from the sustainability project, if you call it that, urban sustainable development politics. Tim May and Simon Marvin asked us here in Gothenburg to do a research project on the what and how of urban sustainability policies in the Gothenburg region. So we did our best, and now 5 years after, I'm totally unconcerned with the question of what. I mean, what is sustainable development? Well, it's everything. It's nothing. It depends. It depends on who sits where and how and discuss and decides what it is. It's bendable enough, it's plurivocal enough to include a lot of voices. Sustainable development isn't anything but becomes something when we do it. So what has been done in the name of sustainable development in this city? A lot of things. A lot of concrete has been poured. A lot of steel has been built. And in terms of climate and social equity issues, I think we should be ashamed. We've, ruined the environment even more. We created a city which is more unequal than from the point we started out in the end of the 90s. So what sustainable urban development did in this city is to privilege a few people to get their way in infrastructural development politics. And for them it's good, but for the majority and for future generations, I believe, and a lot of people in here I think believe, it's not that good.
So what went wrong? We had this discussion also about Neumeier's theories about, maybe you've read the book Strong versus Weak Sustainable Work, saying that you can replace real capital with manufactured capital. And he says some values are more valuable than others, and we have to make a choice. We said that also yesterday. Is that what's happening, that we're actually just dealing with a cover-up or a weak sustainable work?
Yeah, I think the way sustainable urban politics have worked in this city region and in other city regions is to mystify what is actually going on when we speak and see urban development.
Because you've said that sustainability is very often just another word for economic growth.
Yeah.
How's that?
If you look at how it is used in processes, it has become that way. And there are many reasons why. We can have a longer discussion explaining that. But, I mean, how can the concept of justice help us, really, when co-producing knowledge together? I think one important obstacle to overcome is to not hide under the umbrella of co-production. Co-production could be interpreted as a way of collaborating in order to find a solution on really complex issues, conflictual issues. In the best of worlds, we won't postpone the major contradictions and conflicts. We will meet them, we will challenge them, and try to resolve them in order to progress as human beings, as societies, as cities. But co-production, the risk of co-production is to cover up all these tensions, all these contradictions, which we have to deal with. So co-produce, sure, but where is the debate about where we are heading and the contradictions in the paths we have chosen? Wouldn't you say, Reverend?
You've also said that there is a lack of connection between sustainability and well, you said that there is no regime really that shows that sustainability has to do with distribution of welfare and power and whatever, sharing in another sense. There's no real difference between societies leaning on sustainability and others in terms of maybe in the ecological way, but in terms of social issues.
Yeah, I think we lack evidence of sustainability politics being effective in managing environmental degradation and social inequalities in Western and other societies. I think I would maintain that argument. That not said, that I mean a lot of things happens when cities frame policies of sustainability or justice, but a lot of things do not happen as well. And what happened in the Gothenburg region, which I mean that's where I lean on in my interpretations, is that sustainability discourse helped the governing elites of this city to have their way of developing infrastructural transport and housing issues, to privilege those who have and to make those who have not more disadvantaged. That's the point I want to make, and we should be worried about that, because I think a lot of people expect other things when speaking about sustainability, and a lot of people definitely expect other events going on when speaking about just cities. Just city for whom? For whom a just city?
We had this discussion also during yesterday, and Deborah said that we need to train activists, as I said, not planners. And together we read the Planning and Housing Act, the Swedish Planning and Housing Act. Just for you who are not Swedish, it sounds like this. This is the core or the portal or the arch paragraph for the Planning and Housing Act. And it says, with the freedom of the individual in mind. The rules, this law it is aiming to promote a community development with equal and good social living standards and a good and sustainable living environment for today's society and for generations to come. This is the housing, it's not the social welfare legislation, it's a housing and planning and housing act.
Yeah.
So how come that we move so far? What other forces are there luring?
I think the concept of power is interesting to dig into. I mean, that's the law. Why is the law not implemented? Where we have political institutions, we have economic institutions, we have all these power relations in society which pulls, to different directions. But concerning us in here, I mean, what force in society are absent from this room? Which I think everybody would agree is a major part of any social change. Who are not here? You guys, you are technocrats, bureaucrats, maybe politicians, policy advisors. Has any great social change or revolution been led by technocrats? No. People lead revolutions. People, civil society leads revolutions. So if you want any social change, why not collaborate with civil society, or at least some voices in civil society concerned with social change? I think Mistra Urban Futures should reflect on that. Why have there been no major urban justice movement involved in any project on framing what urban and sustainable development means and how it can be achieved? Why?
Our time is running out. Which is a sophisticated way of saying shut up. But I'm not.
You invited me and you said be brutally honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Nazem.
You're welcome.
We just wanted, as I said, to wind up the clock to continue this day, and thank you very much for being what you are.
And what is that?
A just person. Thank you.
Thank you.